Hello! Today we are going to be going over the most important parts of making your own plushie. I use all of these methods and stitches when I create my patterns for my crochet kits. So let's start off with how to actually start your plushie. I like to start my animals with two methods, either a 2-chain method or a magic ring, and we're going to be going over both of those today. The first one, and the easiest method, is the 2-chain method. I typically would recommend this one over the magic ring because that one can be a little bit harder for beginners. To make a plushie using the 2-chain method, we will start with a slip knot. And to make a slip knot, we're going to take our yarn, and I like to leave a little bit of a tail, so I'm just going to pull that out a little bit. And then with our working yarn, which is the yarn that's attached to the ball, we're going to hold it with our left hand. I like to make 2 fingers like this, and I'm going to place it in front of my fingers. And then I'm going to pinch the yarn with my thumb so it doesn't go anywhere. And then I will wrap it around my fingers, and with my middle finger and my thumb on my left hand, I'm going to pull the smaller yarn tail so it's behind the working yarn. You see that? We're going to be making an X. And now once we've made our X and we have a loop on our 2 fingers, I'm going to take my index finger and my middle finger on my right hand, and I'm going to pinch the smaller yarn tail. Okay, so we want to pinch that so it stays secure. And then we're going to take our thumb on our right hand and push this loop that's on our fingers over the yarn tail. So we're just going to give that a little push. Okay, and now we have this little loop. Don't let go of this loop right here. This loop that we just were pinching earlier. And we're going to pull on our working yarn tail to tighten that knot. Okay, so now that our working yarn tail has been pulled and our knot is a little bit more tight, we can pull on this smaller yarn tail to adjust the size of the loop. So see, I'm pulling it and it's getting smaller. We always want to have it on our hook so it's snug, but it's not too snug. So just about like that, if you can see. We don't want it too tight because then our tension is going to be a little bit harder to use, and that will make your whole experience a little bit more difficult. So I'm going to try that again so you can see. So if you ever want to undo your slip knot, you just pull both ends and then the knot will disappear. So we're going to try that again. So with our working yarn in our left hand and our tiny yarn tail on the right hand, we're going to make 2 fingers with our thumb up, and we're going to put it in front of our fingers and pinch the yarn with your thumb to hold it in place. And then we're going to wrap it behind our fingers and grab the smaller yarn tail with our other 2 fingers on our left hand. So we make a little X like that. And then we're going to separate our index and middle finger on our right hand and pinch the smaller yarn tail. And we're going to want to hold on to that because that is the loop that we're going to grab for our slip knot. So once we've done that, we're going to take our thumb and push the bigger loop that's on our fingers, and push that over, just like that. And then we're going to give 1 quick pull with our working yarn tail to tighten that knot. Perfect, so that is a slip knot. This is also the start of any time you're going to chain something. So if you're making scarves, blankets, anything that you're not going to be working in a circle for, you're going to need to learn how to do a slip knot. And then what we will do with this slip knot is we're going to chain 2 stitches. So to chain 2 stitches, we're going to insert our hook and tighten our slip knot so it's a little snug. I like to hold my yarn in my left hand and I crochet with my right hand. I know a lot of people out there are left-handed crocheters. Unfortunately, I don't know how to do that, but there are tons of videos out there that do teach you how to do left-handed crochet. So I wrap the working yarn, which is again the yarn attached to our ball, around my index finger on my left hand, and then I use my ring finger and my pinky finger to hold the yarn and make it secure. Alright, so once we've held our yarn, we're going to pinch the little knot from our slip knot. So right there, we're going to hold it with our thumb and our middle finger. And then I'm going to wrap my hook around the yarn. Get a little closer for you. So I'm going to wrap my hook around the yarn like that. And so the front of the hook is going to be facing you now. And we're going to pull our yarn through our loop. Just like that. And then that is our first chain. So we're going to do it again because we need to have 2 of them. So we're going to wrap our hook around our yarn, and then the front of the hook is going to be facing you, and then pull it through the loop that is on your hook. So pull it through like that. Okay, so let's try this again so you can see it one more time. So I'm going to hold onto my knot from my slip knot so it doesn't go away, and I'm going to slowly pull the working yarn so our stitches become more unraveled. So you're just going to pull that, and we're going to pull that twice. So you have 1 loop left. That is still your slip knot. So we're going to put it back on our hook. Okay, and we're going to pinch it. And then we are going to wrap our yarn around. Wrap our yarn around the hook. And then we're going to pull through. And we will wrap around again and pull through. Perfect. So that is your 2 chains for the 2-chain method. Now the next step for this is to crochet your single crochet stitches into it. We will get into the single crochet stitches a little further on in this video, but for this purpose I will just go through a quick little demonstration of what you do next for this. So once you have your 2 chains, we are going to put our hook into the first chain, just like this. Be a little tricky sometimes. And you're going to have 2 loops on your hook, and you're going to wrap around, pull through, and then you still have 2 loops on your hook, but now you're going to wrap around again. So wrap around again like this, and then pull through. And that is your first single crochet stitch. So most of my patterns start with 6 single crochet stitches. A couple of variations have 4 single crochet stitches or 5 single crochets. Either way, however many you're going to be doing them in this first loop right here. This little hole that you've made. So let's just for the demonstration purposes, we're going to do 6. So after I've made my first single crochet, I'm going to put my hook in the same hole, wrap around, pull through, wrap around again, and pull through. Let's get a little bit more yarn. I like to have a little bit to work with. And then so that's our 2 single crochet stitches. We're going to insert our hook in the hole again, wrap it around. Perfect, there's our 3rd. And again, I will go over this a little bit more in depth later on in this video. There's our 4th, there's our 5th, and there's our 6th. And I don't know if you've noticed, but the loop that we've been crocheting into has been significantly bigger than when we started. That's totally fine. What we're going to do is remove our hook, but I like to pull this yarn a little bit so the loop isn't so small that it slips through and we lose our stitch. So I'm going to hold that over here so it doesn't go anywhere. And then we are going to pull on our smaller yarn tail, because remember, the smaller yarn tail adjusts the size of the loop. It may be a little difficult because my fingers might be in the way, and I will try as hard as I can to where you guys can see. But essentially we're just going to be holding it and pinching it in different spots to tighten that loop. So we can try holding it down here and then hold it up on top and pull. You pretty much just want to hold all of your stitches and then give it a pull. It may be a little finicky to work with, but that right there, those 6 single crochets in a 2-chain method, is how you start almost all of our plushies. The second method to starting a plushie from our crochet kits is called a magic ring. This one can be a little bit difficult to master, but once you do it, it can be quicker than the 2-chain method. To start a magic ring, we are going to take our yarn, and in our left hand, we're going to wrap it around our index and our middle fingers. So we're going to wrap it around like this, okay, so it goes behind your fingers, and then we are going to wrap it back up and turn our hand while we're doing that. So once we have it back up to where it's facing the back of our hand is facing you, you're going to take your yarn and make an X, just like that. So this is the back, and this is the bottom of your fingers. So you're going to wrap it around and make an X. And we're going to go underneath the loop, go over in the top, and pull it through. Okay, once you pull it through, you're going to want to turn your hook so that the front is facing up. Don't let go of anything yet, because if you do, then the magic ring will go away. We're going to take our working yarn tail, which is this back one right here, right there, and we're going to make a chain to kind of secure everything. So we're going to wrap our hook around the yarn tail, just like that, and pull through the loop that is on our hook. All right, that is our first chain, and now you can let go of everything. This is our magic ring, and I'm going to show you the stitches that we put in it later, but for now, to finish off how to do the magic ring, I'll just put them in. So we're going to make 6 single crochet stitches. So we put our hook underneath the yarn. We're going to wrap it around, pull through, wrap it around again, and pull through. We're going to wrap it around, or go underneath the yarn, wrap it around, pull through, underneath, wrap around, pull through. I'm going to get that little tail out of the way, go underneath, wrap around, and pull through, underneath, wrap around, pull through. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's do one more. So go under, wrap around, pull through like that, wrap around again, pull through. Okay, so we're going to pull that so it doesn't go anywhere. And now the neat thing about the magic ring is this little tail right here. So I like to pop it out. So see how it's twisted right now? I like to push it out so it's not twisted anymore. I've found that sometimes when it gets twisted, it's a little bit harder to pull. And now we're going to grab our last stitch that we just made. So grab this one and grab our little yarn tail and pull. And you can see, I'll try to angle it so you can see. When we pull it, it's going to get smaller and smaller, and our stitches are going to come together into a circle. Just like that. So I like to pull the yarn tail pretty tight to secure it, and then we have our circle to start our crochet plushie. So once you have your magic ring or 2-chain method little circle that we start with, I like to start round 2 by crocheting over my little yarn tail. This little yarn tail, if it comes loose, will have a hole, will make a hole in the center of your animal, and we don't really want that. So when we do crochet over it, I like to go into the first stitch, and we're going to push that through both of these loops on the hook, or both of these loops right here that are on the stitch. We're going to go through both of them, just like that. So now you have this loop and then your stitch, and then we're not going to crochet with this, but I will put it over my hook like that, so it's behind the hook. And then we're going to take our working yarn, wrap around, pull through all of that. So both of these loops, and then that yarn, the little yarn tail, and we're going to single crochet. Okay, and when you're working in a round, I like to use stitch markers. This helps me keep track of when my round starts and ends. So I always put it in that first stitch. So just pop that in right there, and then they clip on like that. So quick, nice, little easy, and then to unclip it, you just push it down. And all of my kits come with these, so you can keep track of your rows. Again, we're going to continue to crochet around the back of this stitch. So we're going to insert our hook, have this behind, but we're not crocheting with it. And then I will try to show you in the back. So right here, we're going to have it behind. We're going to wrap around our hook and go through the hole. Don't crochet like this normally, guys. I'm just trying to show you for the back. It's kind of difficult. All right. And then once our yarn loop is through, we're going to wrap around and pull through. And then once you've crocheted all around, you can give this a little pull to tighten everything. But after that, we won't ever need to touch this yarn tail. So go ahead and just crochet over it for your next round, whatever that round says for your pattern. Okay, the single crochet stitch is going to be the stitch you use most. Every plushie you make, whether from our kits or another pattern, uses the single crochet stitch. With our plushies, we will be working in the round, which means we will be working in a circle, and placing all of our stitches in our magic ring or the first chain of our 2-chain method. Let's go ahead and make some single crochet stitches. As you can see, I have expanded our circle a little bit to give me some more room to work with. So each of these little V's right here is our stitch from the previous round. Okay, and we're going to put our hook through the first little V. Okay, so we're going to push our hook in through the V, and then we're going to wrap around and pull through the stitch from the previous round. And then we're going to, so you have 2 loops on the hook, we will wrap around again and pull through both of those loops. Because we are working in a circle, I will put my stitch marker on that first stitch. And we're going to do that a couple more times. So we're going to insert our hook into the stitch, wrap your yarn around your hook, or your hook around your yarn, whichever way you want to look at it. Pull through your stitch from the previous round. Now you have 2 loops on the hook, wrap around, pull through. Do it one more time. We're going to insert our hook through the stitch, wrap our yarn around our hook, pull through, and then you have the 2 loops on your hook, wrap around one more time, and pull through. So that's how you do a single crochet. It's going to be the same every single time you have to do one, and then it's also going to be useful for when you do an increase or a decrease. So let's get started on how to do those. The most important step of plushie making is a single crochet increase. This is essentially making 2 single crochets in one spot. When you do an increase, it increases your overall stitch count and it helps form the shape of your plushie. So to do that, we're going to put our yarn on our hook, and then in the next stitch, we're going to insert our hook, wrap around and pull through, wrap around again. That is your first single crochet of your increase. And then do you see that little spot right there where we entered in? That's where we're going to go again. So we're going to make 2 single crochets in one spot. So push your hook in through that same spot, wrap around, pull through, wrap around, pull through. Perfect. If you can kind of see, so these 3 stitches right here are a regular single crochet, and then when we get over here, we can see 2 of them in one stitch. A lot of patterns are written like this, where you have 1 single crochet with a comma and then increase. So INC means increase. We always like to abbreviate things because if we're writing it over and over again, our hands get tired. So 1 single crochet, comma, increase, surrounded by parentheses. That's going to indicate that it's a pattern. So I like to write this, or I will write increase so you know what it is, and then I will write repeat around in my patterns. which means we're going to make a pattern of 1 single crochet in one stitch, an increase in the next stitch, 1 single crochet, increase, and so on. So I will go ahead and show you how to do this on our little tester here. So we'll put our yarn back on our hook. So when you see something like that, or sometimes it's written where it's 2 SC, so 2 single crochets, whatever that number is before the SC is how many single crochet stitches you'll do in separate spots. So let's just say instead of 1, let's do 3. So if it said 3 SC increase, that's what we're going to be doing right now. So we'll do 1 single crochet, and then in the next stitch 1 more single crochet, and then in that third stitch the last single crochet of that pattern. Okay, and now we will do our increase, which is the 2 in one stitch. So 1 and 2 in the same stitch. Perfect. And now when it says repeat around, we're going to do that again. So 1, 2, 3, and then an increase. Okay, one more time. 1, 2, 3, and an increase. So 1 and 2, just like that. And a lot of times when I write my patterns, I like to put how many stitches you're supposed to have at the end. So let's just say this says 1 single crochet increase, and I write repeat around, and then at the back of my patterns I will have a parentheses and then a number. That number represents how many stitches you're supposed to have at the end of your round. Another very important step in the shaping of your plushie is a decrease. Unlike an increase where we put 2 stitches in one spot, we will be taking 2 spots and making it 1 stitch. This is going to decrease our overall stitch count and kind of fold everything back in if you're making a circle. So I will go ahead and put my yarn on my hook. And to do that, do you remember how there's 2 loops in each stitch? We are only going to be working in the front loop. You can go through both loops if you would like, but the way that it looks when I do just the front loop looks a little better in my opinion, so that's my preferred method. But it's going to be the same process whether you do the front loops or the back loops. So for the front loop, we're going to go just through that front loop right here. Kind of hard to see. Okay? But instead of wrapping around, we're not going to wrap around yet. We're going to turn our hook so then it points down, and then we're going to go into the front loop of that second stitch. So see, we have 2 stitches, kind of, this is from the back. We have 2 of our stitches on our hook and 3 loops on our hook. So this is the working yarn, and then this is the 2 front loops. Okay, we're going to wrap our yarn around and pull through both of these 2 front loops. Okay, so you can see the 2 front loops right there. Now we're going to wrap around again and pull through both of the loops on our hook, and that is a decreased single crochet. So we're going to do that again, and in the front loops of the next 2 stitches we're going to insert our hook, tilt our hook down a little, and go underneath this front loop of the second stitch. Wrap your yarn around your hook, pull through, wrap it again, and pull through. Okay, so that is how you do a decrease in the front loops. Again, that is my preferred method, and I will do that on every single plushie I make, but you can do it this way too. So I will go through both of the loops. So first loop, back loop, we'll go through both. And when you do that, you can't really angle your hook because there's too much yarn in the way. So what I do is I will insert my hook into the 2 loops, wrap your yarn around, so you have 2 loops on your hook now, and then we're going to go into the 2nd stitch, insert our hook again, wrap it around, pull through. Okay, so now you have 3 loops on your hook. Now you're going to wrap around again and pull through all of the loops on your hook. I do like to use this method if I'm crocheting in a panel, so like a blanket or a hat or something that I'm not working in around, I will decrease this way. In one of my patterns, the crochet, actually 2 of them, the crochet banana and the corn, I have peels that come up the side, and those are worked in a panel. So in the parts that call for a decrease, I will decrease like this. So I will have 2 loops on the stitch, pull through, go over to the next stitch, go into both of those loops, wrap around, pull through. So I guess I should say this method is my preferred method for decreasing in a panel. So that way if you do flip it over on the other side, it doesn't look weird with an extra loop hanging out the back. But if you're crocheting in a circle, or you're crocheting a sphere or a plushie or anything, I do prefer that front loop method. So a decrease, when you write it in a pattern, is written in the exact same way as the increase, except for INC, it says DEC. So let's say 1 single crochet, decrease, in a parentheses split by a comma, and then you will repeat around. And then again, in my patterns, I have parentheses at the end of every row that tell you the stitch count that you're supposed to have. So let's say we were decreasing from 10, our previous round had 10, now we do our decrease and we will have 6. For a majority of my animals that I have created for my beginner crochet kits, they all have arms and legs that are crocheted on as we work through the rounds. I use a mixture of 3 different stitches to accomplish this: a half double crochet, a double crochet, and a bobble stitch. Here you can see one of my polar bear plushies that I've created for my kits, and all of his little arms are using double crochet bobble stitches. And then I also use them for the feet. Kits like my turkey and flamingo pattern use wings, which is where we're going to use double crochets instead of bobbles. That way we can have a flatter outcome. To make a half double crochet stitch, we're going to take our yarn and our hook, and on our current project, we're going to wrap our yarn around our hook, and we're going to insert it into the next stitch. So we're going to insert our hook into the stitch, wrap our yarn around, and we're going to pull through the stitch. And we should have 3 loops on our hook because we wrapped around before we put our hook in the stitch. So when we're making a half double crochet, we want to go through all 3 of these loops. So just like a single crochet stitch, we're going to wrap around our yarn, and then we're going to pull through every single one of these loops on our hook. So we're going to pull through 1, 2, and 3. And that right there is a half double crochet. You can see that it's slightly bigger than a regular single crochet because we added that extra wrap of yarn in there. So I'm going to do that one more time for you guys. So we're going to wrap our yarn around our hook, and in this next stitch we're going to insert our hook, wrap around again, pull through, and then we'll wrap around and pull through all 3 of those loops. So 1, 2, and 3. So like I said, it is pretty similar to a single crochet. We are just wrapping around the yarn in our hook before we go in, and then we're going to go through all 3 of the loops instead of the 2 from the single crochet. Next we will create a double crochet stitch. It's very similar to the half double crochet, but there's just an extra step involved. So we're going to wrap our yarn around our hook, and in the next stitch we're going to insert our hook, we're going to wrap around again, pull through, and then instead of going through the 3 loops on your hook, we're just going to go through the first 2. So we're going to leave this last one for later. So So we're going to wrap around, pull through just the first two, like that. So you should still have 2 loops on your hook. And then we're going to wrap around again. And then now we can go through both of those loops. So 1 and 2. You can see that it kind of moves up at an angle. And this is equivalent to 2 single crochets. And the half double would be about a single crochet and a half. So we're going to make another double crochet so you can see it again. We're going to take our hook and we're going to take our working yarn. We're going to wrap around, insert it into the next hook. Insert it into the next stitch. Insert your hook, wrap around, pull through the stitch, wrap around again, and just go through the first 2 loops on your hook. So 1 and 2. And then you should still have 2 loops on your hook. We're going to wrap around and pull through all 3 of them, or all the last 2 loops on your hook. So that is how you do a double crochet. On some of my patterns, like the flamingo, the turkey, and even the manatee, I do have a special way of adding these stitches together so they form a wing-like shape. So I'll go through that with you now, just in case you have that pattern. If you don't have that pattern, they are available for purchase, but you don't have to. And you can use this method on any plushie that you would like. So I like to go through the first loop right here when I make my wing, because when I crochet the next round, it's usually a single crochet stitch all around. So I'm going to crochet in the back of that stitch for that next round. But right now we're working on the front loop. So to make my wings, I will go in through the front loop right here, and then I'm going to be making a slip stitch. So we're going to wrap around our hook and go through that front loop, and then we're going to continue this by taking this wrap around that we just did and going through the second loop. We're not going to be working right here. We're just going to take this loop and push it through this loop. Just like that. That is a slip stitch. So whenever I say it in my patterns to do a slip stitch, that's how you do it. And then we're going to chain 2. And this is going to get us that height that we need to make our double crochets for our wings or fins for the manatee. So now we're going to do our double crochet. So we're going to wrap around, and this is all going to be in that same front loop. So we're going to make 1 double crochet in that front loop, and then pull through, wrap around, pull through again, wrap around, and then pull through. And now we're going to make a second double crochet in that front loop. Let me pull my yarn out a little. So we're going to wrap around, insert our hook in that front loop, wrap around again, and pull through, and then we're going to wrap around and pull through, and the last wrap around and pull through. So see, we can kind of see the shape forming. So we've built that height up, and now we're going across. And to finish off this fin or wing or whatever you're using it for, we're going to chain 2 again to get that height, but now we're going to slip stitch back in that front loop. So you should have 4 things in that front loop after this slip stitch. So we're going to go in the loop, wrap around, and pull through. Okay, and then from there you can go ahead and continue to single crochet or do your next stitch, whatever your pattern says. So we're going to wrap around, pull through, wrap around, and we're going to pull through both, just because I'm making a single crochet stitch, just to kind of get ahead of the fin so I can show you a little more. Okay, we're going to insert, wrap around, pull through, wrap around, pull through both loops. So see here, you can see kind of the shape of the fin. And there is a little gap here, but when you crochet into the back loop on your next round, it's going to kind of cover that gap. So it really doesn't matter right now. Lastly, we are going to be making the bobble stitch. And like I said in the beginning of this little section, the bobble stitch is where I use for my feet or my arms. Sometimes I'll use it for a tail. It really depends on the pattern. Depending on how I want the finished product to look, I will add extra double crochet stitches into my bobble. So you can see here, so there's all of these lines right here. These are my double crochet stitches that I use to build the bobble. For most of my patterns, I will use about 4 or 5 double crochet stitches. The more double crochet stitches you use in your bobble, the bigger the bobble will be. So to make a bobble stitch, we are going to be making all of our double crochet stitches in one stitch on our project. So we're going to wrap around our yarn, insert into the stitch that you want your bobble to be, wrap around again, pull through, so you'll have 3 loops on your hook. But this next step, we're just going to wrap around and pull through 2, just like that. Now we want more loops on our hook, so do not wrap around and pull through these 2. But we are going to wrap around again and go back into our stitch. Okay, and then pull through your working yarn, and you should have 4 loops. Now go through the first 2. Okay, so now you have 2 double crochets in your bobble so far. Remember, this loop is always going to be the loop that from the previous stitch. So we're not going to count this when we're counting how many double crochet stitches we have. So we're going to do it a couple more times. So we're going to wrap around, insert our hook into our yarn, or I'm sorry, our project, wrap around, pull through, wrap around just the front 2. I'm sorry, I can't speak today. Wrap around and pull through just the front 2. Okay, and one more time. So we're going to wrap, insert, wrap, pull through, wrap, and pull through just the first 2. And the more you have on your hook, it can get a little bit tricky, so just take your time once you start getting more. So this one, remember, this loop is the one that was attached to our previous stitch, so we're not counting this one, but we have 1, 2, 3, 4 double crochets in our bobble, and all on our hook. If you do want to count this one in your counts, then it should be 5. So we're always going to have 1 more loop essentially than how many double crochets you want. So if you wanted 5 double crochets, you would have 6 loops. Okay, so once we've added all of our double crochets, we're going to wrap our yarn around, and then we're going to go through every single loop on our hook. So we're going to 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Now, to make our bobble stitch extra puffy, I will push my finger in it while I put in my next stitch. So my next stitch is going to be down here, and it's just going to be a regular single crochet. So with my finger pushing the bobble out, we're going to move it out of the way a little and go into the next stitch and make a single crochet stitch. Pull through, go through both loops. And then I always like to kind of mess with it a little to pop it out a little more. Okay, so there's your first bobble, and usually when you have it on a table, it looks like a little foot, just like this guy. So we have our little bobbles for our little feet, and it helps them stand up a little bit more too. Once you have practiced all of these basic stitches and methods, then the sky is the limit. You can continue your journey with crochet by making more animals, blankets, hats, or even clothes. There really is no limit to what you can make with a hook, some yarn, and these stitches that we went over today. I wish you all the best of luck, and if you have any additional questions, please comment below, or you can send me a message on my social media and I will help in any way that I can. I hope that you have a great rest of your project making.